to find an attempt of ignoring the role and importance of international law as a tool to achieve international justice and to establish a political, economic, and social balance between states. So the article aims to analyze the history, evolution, and decay of the liberal international order from a South perspective, which considers the perspective and role of developing countries in the international order, the democratization of international relations, and the role of international law as an important tool to achieve a new international order, more democratic, multipolar, and representative. So how the paper is organized. First, we discuss the meaning of international order. So what the international order is. We know that it's not an easy question, but avoiding a longer discussion, we classify the international order as a system through its international relations are organized. And like all forms of human activities, the international society operates through rules and norms of law. Indeed, it's not possible to talk about international order without mentioning international law. And international law is a set of rules governing international relations and plays an important role as a common language, as an instrumental technique at the service of states and all actors in international society. So the history and evolution of the international order, as well as the international law, are related to cultural and historical aspects and can be analyzed from different perspectives, such as a social reality and expression of prevailing values. And although is it possible to find many international orders throughout history in different societies since ancient times, the modern international order, as we know currently, developed on the European continent and obtained status of universality in the 19th century. And in the 20th century, we may find roots of the current international order in the period of the First World War, looking into attempts of the US President Wilson. However, the liberal order received global recognition and became the key factor of international politics only after the Second World War. So the paper described the historical movement of powerful nations that have acted sometimes in cooperation, sometimes in confrontation, used the force or mechanisms of soft power over countries and institutions in spreading their influence and liberal values around the world. And we can find the current liberal order, especially at the economic level, and under the leadership of the United States of America, that since the World War II has been spreading liberal norms and values, including economic liberalism in the form of free trade and open markets. And another movement led by developing countries that historically worked together to create a fair economic order governed by rules that would consider the difference between rich and poor nations. So in the 20th century, we can find this movement within the United Nations, and outside within the United Nations, we can talk about an example is the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development in 1964, that was based on concerns of developing countries of the international markets and the great disparity between developed and developing countries. And outside UN, we can mention the No-Aligned Movement and the Group of 77 that refused to completely embrace the liberal order, considering unfair for treating unequal as equal. So Professor Cassio will now discuss the possible decay of this current liberal order, the emergence of new actors such as China, Russia, and BRICS countries, and finally the conclusion of our paper. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Elena. Thank you very much,
Yes, Dr.
Evan.
Kaisya
Thank you
Jain.
very much, Professor Tripathi. I am so sorry if I'm not speaking loud enough. Please let me know because, well, my neighbors may be a little bit disturbed.
Yes,
Well,
yes, yes. I think there is early morning. There is early
yes,
morning in
it's
Rajiv.
five.
So
It's
I
five
got the point.
o'clock here, but let's go. So, as my colleague has said, the, I'll try to discuss: is there a fault? Is there a crisis in international relations? And the first thing that we noticed is when I started to write about this on the paper was: is there something new there? Is that a new crisis? And what we have seen is that several authors have stated that, well, crisis has been here for quite some time already. And we saw Thomas Sankara, notably in the 80s, he said in Addis Ababa, there is crisis as long as we have popular masses in crisis. The crisis has been here always. So the first thing we notice is that uh, crisis has been a constant. Change is constant. And as a result of that, the first thing that we should not do is to worry if we are having a crisis, I think. And but we have seen that now authors from within the liberal order are claiming that there might be a revolution, there might be something different, because now we see the rise, at least from the point of liberal authors, we see those who claim that we may be facing a new possibility of success, because usually Western democracy, liberal movements were seen as the only way to achieve economic success. And what these liberal authors say is that now they don't see it as the only path anymore. And then we have seen that one of these possible causes for a crisis is as Koskiniemi pointed, it's the crisis of those who felt they were left behind by the globalization train. And now there is a crisis between liberalism and autocracy, or liberal orders and countries that chose to have a different path to economic and social progress on their own countries. We have seen the rise of nationalism as a part of uh, the reaffirmation of certain countries after the, the end of the Cold War. And now we have seen China adopting a political and social system that far differs from the Western social liberal democracies, but that did not stop the country from developing. And they are presenting themselves as a new alternative. We have also seen that cracks have appeared in the liberal project from the fail of uh, operations in the Middle East. We have seen that in many situations, in many occasions, this liberal order has been imposed. It has not been peacefully received or peacefully achieved by some countries. And our last small thing was, well, should we worry about that? Should we think, well, it's going to be the end of the world? I guess that if we survive Corona, uh, basically what we will have is a multicultural world, as Ellen just pointed out, and there are good possibilities as well. There are bad possibilities, but there are good possibilities as well. and we can achieve democracy with our own touches. We have seen from long traditions in India, Gandhi questioning if the Industrial Revolution would be a model that could be copied throughout all of the countries. And we have seen here in South America revolution for an ecological order. So what I believe is that we can have a crisis and we can adapt. So I would like to thank you all. I will try to remain within my timeline, my time here. So thank you very much, Professor Sandeep Tripathi. Thank you very much, Ellen. Nice to see you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kels, for your wonderful, insightful observation on liberal order. So, sir, any comments? Dr. Sable?
Thank you so much for the opportunity to say some words about the first presentation. I agree with Dr. Ellen Bueno and Dr. Casio Zen that there is some kind of crisis in the international liberal order, and from my point of view, because I live in Russia, and of course, as mentioned before, is mentioned by keynote speakers, there is some kind of challenge to international liberal order from China and Russia. So, and in this context, it's very urgent. It's very interesting to, to study this challenge, because in China and Russia, these countries have a very long history, especially China, and it's some kind of alternative variants of development from economic and in social sphere. So that's why it's very interesting and urgent to study these challenges from China and from Russia, of course. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sable, for your remarks. Yes, Dr. Amna Mirza, your comments.
Well, very interesting presentation by Dr. Ellen. Very interesting remarks by Mr. Zen. What was of particular interest to me, what Mr. Zen pointed out, that how the narrative of global order or globalization, how it proceeded, where many felt out of it. And I guess this is where the real rectification. Perhaps I'll be dealing with these ideas in my presentation also, that any rectification or any attempt to draw out, reimagine liberal order, one of the biggest challenge lies here is this problem of inclusivity. How do we work out an order which includes everyone? A very interesting remark, once again, that was coming forward from this presentation was that of ecological order. Mrs. Zen, did I hear it right? You spoke about ecological order, some attempts being made. Because I'll tell you, today sustainability is becoming a very important issue. And this sustainability, draws attention that perhaps the way the process of globalization worked in a very materialistic manner. And in this ambit of materialism driven by neoliberalism, capitalism, somewhere we gave a backseat to the concerns of environment, to the concerns of nature. And the pandemic showed that do we have to rethink upon our lifestyles? Are they unsustainable? So I guess on these two important notions, number one, that how do we work out an inclusive approach, and secondly, an inclusive approach which is sustainable. So Dr. Allen, Mr. Zen, many congratulations. Very interesting paper. And these these two perspectives of inclusivity and sustainability, I guess one can work out alternatives for revamping the global order also.
Thank you so much, Dr. Amna, for your remarks on Dr. Chen and Ellen. So now I would like to invite the next speaker. Dr. Anil Kumar is here. Dr. Anil Kumar. perhaps he's not here. So the next speaker, Dr. Janardhan. Dr. Janardhan is here. Can I hear you, Dr. Janardhan? Hello. So the next speaker, Mr. Alok Kumar Singh. He's a doctoral candidate from Jawaharlal Nehru University. Now, the floor is yours. Please, Dr. Alok Aja.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Co-Chair. Thank you, Amarkantak University. Thank you so much, GLA University, for providing me this opportunity to speak in international seminar. I hope I'm audible.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. So the title of my topic is Cosmopolitanism and Alienation in the Modern Globalized World. We are today living in a modern world which is known for its profound and prolific connectivity, not only in sense of commerce, not only in sense of economics, but also in sense of human interconnectedness, cosmopolitanism and spirituality. Tagore beautifully explained the very idea of cosmopolitanism, that it is an idea of reaching out to the trauma of last person beyond any boundaries. However, despite the privilege of having tools of modernity, despite having the privilege of tools of sophisticated technologies like mass media, social media, technologies, what we lack today is that there is something disturbing which is happening in the modern neoliberal order. And that is that in the modern globalized world, where we can connect to any person sitting in this world through the power of technology, mass culture, mass media, Facebook, Twitter, a sense of alienation, a sense of loneliness, a sense of despair, a sense of solitude is inflated more than ever. We need to really understand this, that it is not happening just for the simple reason of moral degradation in the society, as morality too is something which is shaped by our external social political conditioning, by our external cultural technical paradigm. So definitely we need to have an idea of what modernity exactly and this neoliberal world is trying to do with us through its beautiful epiphanies like mass media, social media, Facebook, Twitter, and technology. There are innumerable incidences that in this profoundly connected world, when there has been a need of humanity, mankind has failed miserably. And it has not just happened in one single part of the world, it has happened throughout this planet. In the most advanced countries, which gasconate themselves to be the capitalist countries, maintaining the neoliberal order, promoting individualism, liberty, justice, and equality, what is disturbing is that many a times, frequently, we have failed to deliver what actually is supposed to be delivered from humanity, from the mankind. I will be here taking a case that shook our nation, our India, and not only our India, but also beyond boundaries. Not far in the history in our country, something happened that is known as Nirbhaya rape kand, Nirbhaya rape incidents. And in that Nirbhaya rape incidents, which took place in Delhi, and Delhi here is just symbolic and emblematic of representation, because similar incidences have been taking place in other parts. It took 45 minutes for a bypasser in this modern capital, Delhi, to respond and to take that lady in trauma and pain to a hospital. It is not something which is exceptional about Delhi. Black Lives Matter movement is happening in United States of America, which has been, which claims itself to be the epitome of justice, equality, and liberty. Anna Politkovskaya was killed in Russia on her own birthday, actually. And then recently what we are witnessing in Myanmar. So what we are seeing that in all these incidences, there have been a very frosty reaction in this so-called humanly interconnected globalized world. The reaction is very frosty, the reaction is miserable and very disappointing. So I will be here taking many epiphanies of globalization, modernity, like technology, mass culture, and Facebook, social media that we call social media. So we have Facebook in the offline mode. So now we have two worlds. There is this offline world, there is this online world. The offline world is something where we have this privilege of creating our own virtual euphoric community. If you like somebody, then press the like button. If you don't like somebody, press the dislike button. So technically, we have a beautiful, pleasurable world where we have people of our own choices. People of our own choices, and this idea of having people of our own choices is so pleasurable. But what we are doing through this tool of modernity is that we are creating a comfortable online boundaries within the globalized world. So basically, it's a situation of paradox. And once we are switching to the offline mode, where the real activity happens, where somebody is lying in the trauma and he's really seeking for help, the very tendency, the very ingredient, and the very innate quality of developing socialization, showering mercy, showing empathy, sympathy, and love is absolutely lacking, because the very idea of socialization has been rooted into technology, where if we want to love somebody, we will simply embrace him through like button, and if we want to discard somebody, we will unfriend that person, and that person will be terminated from our world. So the very idea of cosmopolitanism, which needed dialogue, the very idea of love, which needed dialogue, which needed socialization, has been absolutely taken away from us. And this is how we are failing as a society in this neoliberal, modern, globalized world. And this is the role of technology through this modern epiphany called Facebook, Twitter. A Polish sociologist, Zygmunt Bauman, very beautifully said that what we understand as socialization is something where we have actually created socialization which is just a like button far from us in the online mood, in the online modern era. Coming to my second tool of modernity, that is the black magic of technology. We are living in a technocratic world, a world where technical rationality has penetrated in every layer of our life, be it economic, be it social, be it political. And we have become humans in hurry. We are going to our offices somewhere in the Connaught Palace, somewhere in the Noida, and we see a case like Nirvaya. And we feel that if we come out of our Jagannath, we have booked a Ola cab. If we come out of our Jagannath and try to show some mercy to somebody who is in the pain, it would cost us dollar and probably our livelihood, because there is a biometric, technical, rationalized world which is waiting for you to go and give your thumb. You will be admitted, and if you don't do that, if you are even 30 seconds late, there's a possibility that you might lose your job. There's a possibility that it will directly cost your livelihood. And what is happening that in this modern technical society, in the techno-cultural paradigm, on the daily basis, we are dealing with machines. We are surrounded by machines, and in that process, we are actually becoming machine minds. A great Indian poet called Pash very beautifully said through his poetry, सबसे खतरनाक वो चांद होता है जो हर कत्ल, हर कांड के बाद वीरान हुए आंगन में चढ़ता है, लेकिन आपकी आंखों को मिर्च की तरह नहीं करता. सबसे खतरनाक होता है मुर्दा शांति से भर जाना. I will translate this. The most dangerous is the moon, which rises in the Nambyards after each murder and homicide, but it still does not bother your eyes. The most dangerous deed is to be filled with dead silence. And what I believe, it truly reflects our modern life reality. At this juncture of time, we need to remember the philosophy of Polish sociologist Zygmunt Bauman, who said that how technology and social media has developed this capability of presenting themselves as a real community. How we have abandoned the art of connecting new people, understanding them, and seeking a spiritual commonality of us as humans despite our cultural differences. And how we today suffer from a brazen technocratic acclimatization in the modern mode of production. Yes, I do agree that globalization has opened up the boundaries of the world, but sadly, not human hearts and emotions. At present, more than machines, we need humanity. At present, more than endless virtual friends, we require a real hand to hold our hands in pain. It is miserable that we are a society of frequent exchange of messages, but sadly, no dialogue. Thank you.
A big hands to Dr. Alok. Uh, it's really wonderful, insightful. Uh, highlighted here in your paper how the technocratic society has alienated the real essence of communitarian philosophy. So really, it was a delight and honor to listen to you, dear Alok Ajad. Thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. Now I would like to request Dr. Kirill Sabri.
Thank you. Thank you. So it's very interesting and a very exciting presentation. And I believe that here we can divide the problem of international liberal order at least in two levels. The first one is a macro level. I mean, the level of the interaction between powers or states. And Mr. Alok Azad told us about the micro level. I mean, the level when the people interact in the society. And in this case, new technologies, worldwide technologies, Facebook, Twitter, and so on, these technologies impact on the behavior of the ordinary people in different countries, in Brazil and India, or as well as in Russia and European Union countries. I believe that, and it's very interesting and insightful. I believe that it's very insightful study that to point out two levels of international liberal order and the related problems. New technologies, human societies, human relations and relations between people. And of course, I agree that Alok Azad said that new technologies, there is some kind of problems because from one side, new technologies, there is a challenge to the human society because if you want to help someone on the street, maybe you need to use your smartphone or so on, but it's a worldwide technologies, and it's a very interesting problem to study. Thank you so much.
Now, Dr. Amna Mirza, for your remarks.
You know, I have to say, Alok, it was a very interesting presentation. And why I say interesting, because I think, you know, in the world of academia, we must have this approach of dialogue. And why I really find the dialogue in your paper is that how you relate to the poet Pash, which is very unlikely to do in social sciences. Just for our friends who have joined us from overseas, Pash is a very renowned, popular poet here, you know, writing on, you know, something on lines of what Kierkegaard and Albert Camus talk about existentialism, questions on human existence, which perhaps, you know, when we look at around in the global world, they are having a huge impact on everyday lives also. So, Alok, hats off to pointing towards Pash. But having said so, two very important issues that you presented in your paper. First was on modernity. You aptly point out that, you know, globalization, the global project presented to us an image, a narrative of a new world. But, you know, Alok, my question is, who defines modernity? We have to problematize there. What are the factors, or perhaps if we can have a postmodern perspective here, you know, we must keep invoking Foucault because that really gives us new horizons. We always have to ask, who defines modernity? Secondly, you aptly point out that how technological globalization has flooded us with information. It has flooded us with messages, but somewhere our dialogues are missing. The big question here is that, but it is this technology only, Azad, if you see that how even when the virus had shut down the entire world, technology kept us going. The onus lies, Azad, in use of technology. Technology is very much needed. But for reform of global order, I guess nations must commit themselves to this very important angle that technology is needed for human beings, but it should not overpower the civilizational narrative. I think this is where, for example, institutions exist. Liberal order gave us beautiful institutions, but how they were made use of or how they functioned, the problem lied there. So but once again, congratulations, very interesting and insightful insights coming forward from your paper. And the questions of modernity and technological globalization have been very deftly and deeply dealt by you. So congratulations to you for that.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Amna Mirza, for your very insightful and critical.
I think Dr. Tripathi has some internet connectivity problem. I would like to invite our next speaker or paper presenter, Dr. Janardhan. He is Assistant Professor in Political Science in Sagar Central University, Madhya Pradesh. Dr. Janardhan.
Thank you, madam, giving me opportunity regarding to share my view this international conference. My paper topic is that the crisis in international order, opportunity and challenges for the rising power. Presentation I centered on 3 points: international liberal order, crisis, and shift in power and rise of China, understanding what is impact regarding the region and global. So regarding the international order, liberal order, we talk the structural relationship between sharing power units and based on the value system, institutions, and major power uh, supports. So a liberal order was created after 1945, Second World War. Democratic structure, institution, and multiculturalism, collective security system, and the UN Charter included all the Westphalian notion of order to manage the global governance regarding it. But it has been seen the late during the Cold War, it has been challenged by other value system that was Soviet. Uh, but after 1980s, the liberal order tried to expand with the help of the liberal international financial institutions. And it has been more or less interpreted as the American international system. And it has boomed and in expansion every corner of the world they included. But crisis started due to the rise of illiberal forces, but they were non-state actors like this, but a deeper crisis started during the Trump regime, when the Trump administration tried to distance itself from the supporting the international liberal order. Trump administration was believing that liberal international order had not profited or benefited to the American rather than it has given to the benefit rather other rising powers, particularly in sense of China. So they were trying to reduce the burden of the American and to make the great power capacity, strengthen American capacity. So he withdrew from the important treaties, TPP and Paris climate deals and others. They also withdrew from the even Iranian nuclear deals. Then they were signaling that their alliance system, their distrust, there's something there. It has question doubts to the leadership role of USA as a global leader to support the international system. So, in this sense, COVID crisis has deepened this crisis more. So, regarding this, there is Techel, even a shift in the power. So, if you see the rise of other, the decline of one hegemon and rise of another hegemon. So what is the impact? How does the liberal international order try to incorporate the rising powers like China and others? So if you see the perspective in two sense on the global issue and the Asian regional system, regional management. So on the global issue, if we see the rise of China, even it was, they supported the positive, they integrate in the sense of liberal system and the reform, ethics, they were thinking and try to join the membership of WTO and other financial institutions. So it was hoping that China is giving the signal that it's rising of China is not threatening any going to stress to the international liberal system in the international liberal order. But gradually, in sense of the regional understanding, the Asia, the shift in the hegemon powers is going to see. So if you see what the perspective of and China regarding that Asian order. So China's perspective, the Asian order is with the China. It is not ruled by U.S. management. So no business U.S. has to manage the security system and others in the Asia. So they are very closely with, defined with Asia with the Chinese value system and others. So there was Chinese nationalism also in the public mood, not need to be inferior to the Western civilization. So US talks with no role in the Asian security. They are uh, they are cooperating with the global, but they are and region in Asia. They are focusing. It should be China Asian. For the Asia, the people of Asia have the capability and wisdom to achieve peace and stability in the region through enhanced cooperation rather than interventions of the external. But the current regime that in the US, the Biden, who is again inserting supporting the liberal values in sense, supporting democracy, human rights, and Quad also the recent virtual meeting. But regarding the pivot concept and that the Chinese are very skeptical and they used to see the very different from that perspective. So they are saying there's a relics of the Cold War, hype of China's thesis, and forming enclosed small cliques is the surest way to destroy the international order. So Chinese, they are very much in saying in the era of globalization, forming enclosed small cliques with ideology as realistic is sure way to destroy the international order. So what do you mean by then understanding the Chinese perspective, how they are going to manage the Asian order? Then they are Chinese for regional management, they have supported China led by financial institutions like AIV Bank, BRICS Development Banks, and other initiatives. So China is signaling that Asian current order can be managed by the Asians rather than they are going to intervene for provide opportunity for external in the sense of the Pacific management. So they are not going to ready to accept, and but they are not as actual. They are pressurizing on the global level to shift. So they want to coexist with the liberal, with the global level, but an Asian regional order, the hegemon they are managing with their own. So, but others rising powers is the competing each other. So there is a balancing act like India and others, Australia and Quad meeting. So there is a Asia is going to face kind of major power hostility, a major power rivalry. So if you see the dynamics of shifting the power from one hegemon to another rising hegemon, the system is going to affect, and it is it's indicating that they are returning to the Westphalian Ocean order sovereign states and the workable arrangement for the shared understanding among the major powers. So the Chinese model they use to discuss this, how can they show? So if you, there is a question how this reason is going to escape from the Thucydidean traps, yeah, unescapable competition, yeah, struggle from the both rising and established hegemons. So this is creating a kind of, it is depend upon the how the rising powers, particularly BRICS country and others, they are going to share and agree with this order. That I want to say in my paper. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Janardhan, for your remarkable presentation. Now, ma'am, Dr. Sablin, you have any remarks?
Thank you. Thank you. So it's very interesting for me. It's very interesting presentation, and so I'm involved in political economy studies, and it's very interesting for me and exciting to hear that there is some kind of competitive advantages in of international liberal order, and you told us about the United States of America, the European Union countries, the democracy, the rule of law, then the human rights. On the other hand, there is China, and there is some other developing countries in Africa, as well as we can say that in Russia also there's some kind of problems with human rights and the rule of law. But I see that there is a potential to conduct comparative study between the international liberal order and its values on one hand, and maybe, I don't know, it's very interesting to find out this information and to conduct comparative study, that to study maybe there's competitive advantages or maybe disadvantages of the countries which are the challenges for liberal international order. I mean, China or Russia or other countries, because you know that for example, in China, this is a pragmatic policy, especially if we try to analyze the economic relationships between Russia and China. You know that Russia is one of the primary exporter of natural gas and oil for European Union countries as well as for China. But you see that there is a pragmatic way of China in the world trade, in economic sphere. But on the other hand, there is some kind of problems. I mean, in political sphere, in human rights, in the democracy, and so on. So for me, it's very interesting, and it's very interesting to conduct comparative studies of advantages and disadvantages of international liberal orders and its challenges. I mean, in countries with developing markets. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sablin. Dr. Amna Mirza.
Dr. Janardhan, greetings, and Dr. Janardhan, was a very interesting paper. And why I say it interesting, because once again, two important things coming from your paper. First of all, how you highlighted the role of non-state actors. I think this is one area where we all, I mean, in the realm of international relations, are really grappling with this, because the ambit of non-state actors is increasing day by day. And this ambit is again further being, when you look at the shifts at how today, when we look at the global market scenario also, world over, there is an attempt to balance this debate of state versus market. We are seeing rise of PPP models all over across nation states. So how you pointed out in the beginning, that how with the evolution of the liberal order, non-state actors indeed are important, and you aptly point that out. Second thing which I really find interesting, that how you point out about the Asian order, and with reference to the Quad meeting and the churnings that are there. Dr. Janardhan, it is being said by all over, by theorists all over the globe, that the next century would be an Asian century. Now, what will be the defining moment of that Asian century? Of course, the dynamics of economics, the various industrial models, everything, all of it has to be factored in. So it's very interesting how you put this Asian order within the big picture of evolution of the international order. But Dr. Janardhan, as you point out, the balancing act. If I can speak to you, that recently I've done an article on this Quad aspect also, because if you see that when the Quad meeting happened, just few days after that, there was a opinion piece in Global Times which said that somewhere India is not a very positive asset. If I may be getting the words wrong, but there was an article in Global Times. So the balancing act, getting all the Asian powers together, and in the Pacific zone also, be it Australia, New Zealand, India, with reference to the China factor, will indeed be a very important dynamic to focus on, because this dynamic will just not be only about military. because today
Yes, sure.
nations are in this quest, to get the economics right. And
Sure.
this economics, this technology, health apparatus, multidimensional security, all of it, which will be an important component of that. So congratulations to you for your very interesting paper on and two very important inputs that you must keep highlighting: the role of non-state actors, because the states across nation states, be it a developing or a developed world setup, they are grappling with this management of space. How much of space can the state cede to the non-state actors? And secondly, when you're looking at the rise of alternatives, rise of Asia, and it's the future, what will be the future narrative, is being keenly watched by world polity observers also. So thank you, Dr. Janardhan, for your paper, and congratulations for this very interesting presentation.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Amna Mirza, for your critical remarks. Dr. Janardhan paper. So I think the next speaker is not here. So I'm sorry for that. So I would like to welcome direct questions from a speaker, because I didn't get any question in the chat box. So from the participants, if there is any question from the speakers.
I'm here. Dr. Sandeep, I'm here.
Okay, okay. So, sorry, again, we have a speaker. It's very glad for us that he joined recently. So, Dr. Brahmaya, he's an assistant professor of political science at the Indira Gandhi National Tribal University. Now he's going to present his paper. Now, Dr. Brahmaya, floor is yours. Please take it over.
So I'm sharing the screen. Please enable me to share the screen. Dr. Sandeep, it is asking host disabled participant screen sharing. Please enable me so that I.
Now you are host.
Yeah. Okay.
That's it.
Now is it visible now?
Just miss. Yeah.
Sure. Visible? Okay. Yeah. Very good afternoon to all of you, respected chair and co-chair, and the vice chancellors of both the universities, and also my dear colleagues, and also the organizers of the international seminar. So I would like to extend my thanks to all of them for giving an opportunity to present my paper on the resurgence of Russia and also Russia's engagement with regional institutions in the contemporary multipolar world. So since morning, so very internationally reputed speakers, they have been so delivering on various themes related to our international theme, and also since morning scholars from France, Russia, and across the globe, and also Professor Rajiv Kumar sir from reputed Jawaharlal Nehru University was also my supervisor in JNU, and also in detail explained what are the dynamics of the contemporary international liberal international order. So I would like presenting on the objectives of my paper is to analyze the evolution of Russian foreign policy in the contemporary global world, and also to explain the significance of Russia amid shifting global power dynamics, and also to explain the Western influence in Russia. And also the recent times we have seen that so many protests have taken place in Russia, and also you can analyze as a student of international politics. So what kind of the role of West in Russia? They are also through various means they are trying to influence the people in Russia also, and also to highlight the importance of United Nations as the legitimate arbiter of international laws and norms, and also to explain the Western efforts to isolate Russia diplomatically and through various sanctions, and also to project Russian power and influence in the contemporary global world, and also to evaluate the benefits and cost of Russia's deeper engagement with multilateral organizations. So all of you know that Russia has been actively engaging with the various multilateral institutions, and also it is playing very vital role in various multilateral institutions like Eurasian Economic Union, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and also the BRICS that all of you know, that Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and also Russia, India, China Trilateral Summit. So now Russia is playing very vital role in the Central Asian republics and also in Asian region. And so now the introduction part. So to explain, I would like to explain the evolution of Russian foreign policy. So Professor Rajiv Kumar sir in JNU has extensively worked on the resurgence of Russia in the contemporary global world. So he has also written, published a book also, an article in international reputed journals also. So I have taken many ideas from sir article and book also. And so the evolution of Russian foreign policy. So we can explain from three pages. So that is the first one, neoliberalism and the West-centric policy. So after from 1991 to 95, that is the disintegration of Soviet Union. So all of you know that. And second one is Eurasianism and the search for multipolarity. And that is from 1996 to 2006. And finally crossing the Rubicon from 2007 to 2005 and marked by external interventions in Georgia, Ukraine, and Syria. So these 3 pages will explain you how itself, again, the Russia itself asserting in the contemporary global world, how again it is like revitalizing its previous global power status in the contemporary multipolar world. And also, so Russia, so also the nature of Russian foreign policy also, it has been shifted from West-centric to a complete break with the West. So all of you know that Gorbachev policies have been led to the glasnost and perestroika, and other economic reforms led to the collapse of Soviet Union. So then again, so how Russia went to various transition phases also. The first phase, if you see from 1991-95, so it has given main thrust to substitute decaying social institutions with a capitalist and liberal democratic form of governments. And also this phase, it has witnessed rapid economic privatization and initiated by shock therapy and the loan for shares and various schemes. And also you know that the economic crew consist of Boris Yeltsin and Gaidar and Kozyrev and Chubais. And the second phase from 1996 to 2006, and also it has also witnessed a gradual shift in its policy from West-centric approach to a more balanced foreign policy. And third phase, and it is a kind of protestation and intervention from 2007 to 2017. And if you see that Vladimir Putin's speech at Munich in 2007, and also it has so clearly outlined the outlook of Russian foreign policy in the contemporary global world. And you see what is the Russia perspective on Eurasianism. And also, like many scholars of Eurasianism, so they are highly critical of Russia's fascination with the West initially. Why? Because since many factors led to the collapse of Soviet Union, so many scholars of like Russia, they don't want again to repeat that kind of system to be experienced again in Russia. And also it has acted as a bridge between the West and East also. And also Eurasianism and also strongly believes in the concept of and peace and harmony in the Eurasian region also. So they don't want to face again another kind of any kind of issues in that region. And also Eurasianism would like to restore the great power status of Russia, and it has like following priorities. So restoring the pride of Russia, like the greatness, the great superpower status of Russia, and economic integration of the former Soviet space, and also countering the Western attempt to regime change in the neighborhood, and also departure from the West-centric policy to and also search for the partners in Asia. And also that's why now Russia also it has been active, so developing good strategic partnership with India also. India and Russia have signed so many significant defense pacts, and also they are going for the giant venture of key defense equipments like BrahMos cruise missile and multi-transport aircraft and various weapons also. And recently also Russia and India have signed so many significant defense deals. And the foreign policy concept of the Russian Federation, like Vladimir Putin has so clearly outlined, so what are the objectives of Russia in 2000, and also at his address at Munich. And what is multipolarity? So Russian multipolarity strongly believes in the system of world system, so that is based on multipolarity, and which is based on democratic values also. And also would like to enhance the geopolitical interest of Russia also. And thirdly, and also you know that, so when the multipolar world can be succeeded, then many states are actually engaging with the various regional organizations also. And in this connection, both India and Russia also actively participating in various multilateral organizations. Like so in South Asia, also India actively engaging with various regional organizations in the South Asian region also. Like, and also Moscow's
I'm sorry
approach to multilateral. Hello.
I'm sorry, Dr. Bombaya. Please conclude within 2 minutes.
Yes, yeah. So this all it is there, okay. So the approaches are there, and you know that Eurasian Economic Union also, and Russia is playing very pivotal role in Eurasian Economic Union, and also this data it is there, and also Russian public opinion and various public institutions also it is there, and Shanghai Cooperation Organization. So all of you know that here also Russia is playing very vital role, okay. And BRICS, like it is playing very significant role in the contemporary global world, okay. So you know that many scholars also they have been extensively working on that. So what is the significance of BRICS? Why Russia, India, China together they are participating? So they are giving the alternative counterbalance to the global hegemony. And you know that, so nobody has expected that Vladimir Putin and like you can intervene in Georgia, Ukraine, and Syria. And these three instances, so it will indicate that how Russia it is like again it is emerging as a global Russia. So finally, I would like to conclude my lecture. It is saying that it has been actively engaging with various multilateral institutions. Now, by you can witness that. So the return of global Russia. So now, for example, so previously after disintegration of Soviet Union, many scholars they expected that again Russia will not emerge as it is previous great power status. Now the contemporary multipolar world order, and also the foreign policy concept of Russian Federation, and also particularly Vladimir Putin's foreign policy and his strategic partnership with the Asian countries and also various European Union and all. It clearly indicates that, so again, Russia has emerged as a global power in contemporary global world. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Bombaya,
Yeah.
for elaborating, for explaining the different phases of Russia's foreign policy. And you rightly highlighted that the Russia is not emerging. Russia has emerged in many spheres. So thank you so much. I'd like to comment, Dr. Sablin, one comment.
Yeah,
and
thank you so much. It's a very interesting presentation about the Russia and the place of Russia in the foreign relations, I mean international relations. So the presenter is quite right that the Russia is a very huge country. The Russia, the first place in the world according to the square of the country. So it's very great and huge territories. You know that there is 85 regions in the Russia, and in this case, I am deeply sure, and frankly speaking, I can say that the idea of the liberal ideas are not so popular in Russia. So the ideas of the strong leadership, the idea of the political power, the ideas of the bureaucratic state, and so on and so on. It's the ideas that the history of the Russia, the history of the Russian Empire, then the history of the Soviet Union, and the history of the modern Russia. So, and the Russia is a very big country, and there is the capital of the Russian Federation, Moscow, and there is St. Petersburg. And in these cities, the ideas of liberal ideas are popular among, how we can say in Russia, between Russian intellectuals and scholars in these cities, in the European part of the Russia. But I'm from Kemerovo. Kemerovo is a city in the Asian part of our country, in West Siberia now. And the Siberian part, the Asian part of the Russia, and the people who live here, the liberal ideas are not so popular. It's not so popular, and that's why the Russian leadership they always try to coin the image of the enemy, the enemy, for example, from the United States of America, from the European countries, and so on. And you're quite right when you show us the periods of the development of the Russia from the beginning of 1990s till the current times. After the collapse of Soviet Union, the Western ideas and the West-centric ideas was very popular among the population because, it was a new Russia, it's a democratic Russia, there's a market economy and so on. But I guess that the last 10 or maybe 15 years, the liberal ideas and the ideas about market economy and the ideas about political competition and democracy are not so popular. Because as a political economist, I can say that there is the concept of path dependence, maybe path dependence, and I can say one more very maybe strange thing, that the modern Russia is not a nation state. Modern Russia is some kind of imperial society, imperial society. And the example of the Crimea Peninsula, I mean that the Crimea Peninsula is the part of Russia from the year 2014, and this is an example that to survive, Russia has to expand its territories, because nowadays Russia is an imperial society and imperial state, because it's a very huge distances, from from the west to the east, it's about 8,000 kilometers. And in this case, it's very urgent, it's very interesting to study not only the history and not only the internal domestic policy or internal policy, but it's very interesting to study the interaction between the political and administrative organization of the state and the current status of society. So I believe that there is a very strong links between the economy and society on the one hand in Russia, and the very huge impact of the state and how we can say in Russia, the authorities, the public authorities, federal authorities, regional authorities, and their impact on the economy, on society, that to integrate the Russia as the empire society. So thank you for your presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sablin. Finally, you frankly accepted that the order is more important than freedom in Russia, and because of the empire. So thank you so much for your critical observation. Now, because we have so very less time, so I would like to invite Dr. Ram Ratan. Vimal, please come and take your floor for your paper presentation. And then finally, I'll come to chair and the co-chair. Yes, please. Please conclude by 8 to 9 minutes, because already we are getting late.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. I hope I'm audible.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. Thank you so much for this opportunity. And my topic is about globalization and law. I could hear a lot of presentations here, and I could connect with my own paper. As the time is very limited, so I'll come to the core point of my paper. In 1950s and 60s, when India got independence, and similarly many global South countries, they got independence from the colonial rule. And most of these countries of the global South, they adopted a liberal sort of a constitution. And the main idea put forth through the liberal constitution is to have liberal rights, and the government will also look for the welfare of the people. Now, when this model was projected, US at that point of time, it had a very strong hold over the whole international politics, and not just international politics, but also on the economy, as it appeared to be as a winner out of World War II. And through some of the scholars in US and also the US government, they identify this very important observation, thinking that after independence, like of these global South countries, they will have a certain economy, right? And in that economy, they wanted to have a specific sort of their policies, right? Liberalized sort of a policies. So US government funded certain research, and Ford Foundation also supported those research, that why not, to project or to export their development model, which could be seen as, law and development sort of an approach, which we could export, to those global South countries. So this project started in 1964 and it continued till 1974, right? So the major premise was to have a westernized or a US sort of a development, which could be, yielded, which could be secured also in the global South. There may be many other alternative, intentions or motives that might be involved, that US wanted to secure those markets or project their control, particularly in the economy. In 1974, after 10 years of this, whole academic setup and identifying the policies that the global South could make, in 1974, a scholar called Trubeck and Mark Gallant, they wrote an article which is called a self-estrangement of this model. And in 1974, they highlighted the shortcomings of this model. They said we cannot export the US law and model to the global South countries. Why to not to the global South, in spite of having liberal constitution there, which they have modeled either on the Western constitutional setup, or they must have taken it from the United Nations, Universal Declaration of Human Rights. But we cannot realize, we cannot secure the results that we secured in US. They identified certain gaps into that, and those gaps, one of the primary shortcoming which they said, that the social reality, socio-economic and political reality that exists in that country, is completely different what we have in our country, and particularly the nature of law, which they identify, that we will produce new lawyers, new law schools, and they will adapt this liberal law, and that's how we can implement the developmental policies there. So in 1974, when they when they mentioned this position, their position was well accepted by the scholars who were actually leading this program, and that's how there was an end to this law and developmental program, so which was more of a westernized one. After 1990s, we find that there was a revamp. It was this whole concept was revisited. Why I'm taking this point and why I really want to reflect here was that though I'm not a student of international relations, right? Um, and I could connect here is that when President Barack Obama, when he visited India, he said that India and US, they shared a lot of similarities. The biggest similarity was about the nature of the constitution that exists. So our policies that rest on the constitution, liberal constitution, will yield the so-called similar outcome. So we are sort of a natural sort of collaborations we can have. After 2014, we find in India that there is a debate which is taking place, and that's coming from a very major quarters, that they say that we should have a developmental agenda which is Chinese or Chinese oriented one, where the policies should be framed in a such a way that it should be implemented irrespective the impact it creates on the masses. Right. So, my major point was, my major argument that comes from my paper is that law and developmental model, which was propagated in 1964 and which ended in 1974, could identify the real shortcomings. We cannot overlook those shortcomings, and those shortcomings are still relevant in many global South countries. I end up with that sort of an observation. Yeah. Thank you so much, Sandeep sir, and.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Ramathan, sir. Yeah. You really highlighted the drawbacks of the order. Thank you so much. Now, I would like to invite, we have one question. So I would like to raise one question, ask from Dr. Brahmaya. This is question asked by Jayesh. He's a scholar from Jawaharlal Nehru University.
Okay.
So you have for you question. Has Russia benefited from the liberal international order? If yes, how?
See, after the disintegration of Soviet Union, are you able to listen my voice? Yeah. Okay. See, after the disintegration of Soviet Union, Russia itself it had realized that now they have to balance both their previous policies and also they have accepted the liberal international political order also. So once they are accepting, it doesn't mean that they are accepting the policies of West. Okay, since already they have suffered from disintegration of Soviet Union, so they never accept the Western influence or the Western hegemony and Russian country or Eurasian countries per se. Okay, that's why in order to counter this global hegemonic policies or the Western influence, so Russia has been actively engaging with Asian countries and also the multipolar institutions like BRICS it is there, and also Shanghai Cooperation Organization and the Russia, India, China Trade Summit. So it has been actively engaging with the multipolar institutions so that all will get equal representation in the contemporary global world. No country should think that I am dictating, I am dominating the world order. So that's why Russia now strongly believes in a multipolar concept. So even it will not accept the liberal international political order if it is going against the geopolitical interest of Russia and Eurasian countries also. Okay, so it will not accept it, but it will, in fact, it will promote the more interest of the multipolar institutions. Okay, that is fine.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Bambaya. There is one request. Please make me host. You are now host, so please make me host. And there is some disturbance from the backside, so please kindly mute yourself, whosoever. So, Dr. Bambaya, kindly make
yes, I can hear you. Yes,
kindly make me host.
I have to make you host.
Okay, thank you. Sure. I think there is no question at all. So now I would like to welcome Dr. Kels Remarks for chair remarks in this technical session. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So it was a great pleasure for me to be a chair of the first technical session, and so the name of the technical session about international liberal order, the history, evolution, and decay, and the role of international organizations in the international liberal order. So we can see that there is different states, for example, Brazil, India, Russia. So on the one hand, and there is very complex interaction between the states, and of course there is great challenges, especially at the present time. I can see that, for example, from China, especially because I know that there is very complex interaction in Russia and China, especially in the economic relations, because there is common knowledge. I mean, inside the Russia, there is common knowledge that the Russia is the supplier of raw materials for China, for Chinese economy. So that's why there is a great danger for Russia to be some kind of junior partner for the China. On the other hand, I see that there is states, for example, United States of America, countries of European Union. And today there is presentations of keynote speakers, and the professor Arnaud from France said that the European Union countries enjoyed the peaceful time during the last 15 or 16 years. I believe that the international liberal order and its values is some kind of privilege, a privilege for the industrialized developed countries. But the countries with emerging markets, especially the poorest ones in Africa, in Asia, they have to be integrated in the world economy, and they have to be integrated in the international liberal order on the rules of the game. And these rules of the game were coined by the industrialized countries. So from our point of view, so the international liberal order is some kind of privileged order for rich countries with political democracy and with open market economies. And on the other hand, there is challenges, China, Russia, other countries with emerging markets, that to show that there is alternatives of economic development. So thank you very much. Each presented was very interesting, and it's very inquisitive presentations for me. Thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you, Dr. Sandeep Tripathi, that gave me opportunity to take part, to participate at the conference. Thank you so much. Thank you. Dr. Sandeep Tripathi, you're welcome.
It seems Dr. Tripathi is not here.
Okay.
So he's lost the connection. So allow me to come in here as the co-chair.
Am I audible?
Yeah, Sandeep, sir, you're audible.
Okay. Sorry for disconnecting. Thank you, Dr. Seblin. Now I would like to welcome and invite Dr. Amna Mirza for their remarks about this session. And we hope we are so glad that your expertise on the globalization, your works continuously on this global order will be benefited for the participants and us as well. So thank you, Dr. Amna, and now the floor is yours, please.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Sandeep. And if you can also run the PPT so that our friends can also learn side by side. So
Okay.
I'll try to be very brief, friends. Gratitude Center for International Politics and Law, GLA University, Mathura, Uttar Pradesh. Gratitude to Department of Political Science and Human Rights, Amarkanta University, Madhya Pradesh. Thank you so much, friends, for having us here for this first technical session. It was indeed a pleasure to listen to papers by Mr. Zen, Dr. Allen, pointing towards the issues of new alternatives. Very interesting presentation coming forward by Mr. Alok, pointing out towards issues of modernity, technocratic globalization. Very interesting remarks by Dr. Janardhan on issues that are there, especially for the Asian order, and especially Dr. Chakali's presentation on role of Russia, because today, if we are able to talk about the global governance dynamics, if we are able to analyze a world which is beyond unipolarity, emergence of Russia has indeed played a very important role. And therein, Dr. Sablin aptly pointed about the internal churnings between society and economy linkages. I really liked Professor Ram Dhumal's presentation. How Ram sir pointed out about this dichotomy. And when we Ram sir though we are from international relations, but when we study international law also, for example, when we study WTO, the idea that you pointed out about self-estrangement, that how somewhere the liberal perspective or the liberal arrangement, if we say, it's not really that liberal when we see in the actual practice. WTO is an example of that. Many of its agreements, somewhere they completely misfit the agenda of developing countries. So it's so good to see how the realm of international relations is striking same chords with concerns of an international law expert like you. So, sir, I really enjoyed that presentation. Now, with this, allow me to come to my presentation, wherein I'm going to be talking about, because I know there is time constraint, and I've shared the PPT with Sandeep ji also. But my focus of my presentation is reforming globalization. Now, why we really talk about reforming globalization? At the outset, we all know that globalization signifies interdependence. It signifies rise in cross-border movement of people, ideas, services, trade, amongst others. Globalization, dear friends, we all know it's not new. It has always existed in the past. For example, when we talk about the Great Silk Route. But what is very essential in the present particular times here is the scale and the reach of globalization, which is driven by rampant, information and technology. Now, this interaction and integration with advances in transportation, communication, technology, somewhere has raised huge questions. Why we say it has raised huge questions? Because, like any concept in the political discourse, globalization is contested. It has led to gains, but at the other side, we cannot ignore the huge trade offs that came with many of its disadvantages. Any approach gives us the perspective to analyze international relations. When we talk about global international relations, what was the main image of this discipline be like? For example, we have friends from various other multiple disciplines. International relations are a young discipline. It emerges in 1919. And therein what we see here is that the context of war, the image of discipline as a warfare, was the dominant image. And this is why realism as the dominant approach focused, kept the entire focus of international relations towards states, self-help, survival. And all of it, when we see, was seen in the narrative of us versus them. What is interesting to see that with the end of the Cold War, rise of multipolarity, as we saw that we have multiple centers of power, as globalization was the leading narrative for definition of the world. At the same time, there were questions what that was of unequal economic growth, of huge trade-off, of job displacement, of potential, a huge spillovers. For example, a recession which was there in United States in 2000 state, it engulfed the entire world. So what we see that how this debate on globalization, whether it is beneficial or not, 2016 onwards, it reaches its peak. We hear the narrative of deglobalization for someone who is, written reams following the erstwhile Professor President Trump on Twitter, that how the ambit of diplomacy was just reduced to 160 words on new social media. United States pulling out of Paris Peace Agreement. And within the same context, what is essential for us to be seen, to understand here, is that the narrative of reglobalization, that comes forward from, for example, Dr. Sandeep, this is the slide: deglobalization, reglobalization. Yeah. So what we see here, friends, here is that between globalization and reglobalization, we have to accept the fact that international order is increasingly changing. Dr. Sandeep, if we can come to the ninth slide, we are there towards that. Yeah. So the ninth one here. So what we see here is that we are there in a phase wherein, the world is witnessing that at one point US withdrew from Paris Peace Agreement, though it has rejoined now. There is rise of new nationalism, and one of the issues that was concerning globalization was that of the elitist bias. And what we see here is, within this context, there are new question marks over the future of global governance. Going to our next slide. Now, when we talk about future of global governance, dear friends, we have to reimagine this, we have to answer this question with reference to the present day context. And this present day context is defined by a pandemic wherein a virus has disrupted our imaginations of what governance parameters are from national to the domestic level. In the same realm, when we are trying to reimagine the world, with our next slide, India, when we talk, when we say that, the narrative should come from Asia. But what narrative should come from Asia? India has aptly spoken about it. See, let's accept it that globalization has given us gains. But at the same time, what is the question mark here is that it's disconnect from the grassroots. It's complete absence from the grassroots experiences needs to be catered to. And this is where we sum up that, how do we reform globalization? I take reference to the remarks made by Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji at the G20 virtual summit, at the United Nations program for ECOSOC, wherein the idea was that pandemic has given us a new call to reimagine the world. And what is essential, that we must think that our already existing institutions must be made relevant for the individuals, for the humans. I guess this is where the big challenge of the theory also lies, that in the entire focus on the realist edifice, we missed out many important concerns. And this is why the call for human-centric globalization that gives primacy to people, globalization that gives primacy to people-centric issues and not just profits and other things. So what we see here is that, owing to changes in context, today policymakers, international relations academia, related disciplines of history, sociology, international law, media studies have to recognize that today the idea of security has changed. Idea of security is multidimensional, because today inputs for security are not just military, but from ecology to health to food to nutrition to individual, amongst others. So, what is essential here is that we cannot say no to globalization, because even in tough times, say of a pandemic, or perhaps even when there was a big question on globalization through deglobalization narrative, the world did not stop. The interdependence project was not given a back seat. What is essential that we need to reform, taking into account the huge challenges that are there both at national and international level. Dealing with any crisis at a time when global governance is witnessing heated debates between globalization, deglobalization, and reglobalization requires multi-dimensional strategy and multidisciplinary understanding. For example, today international relations cannot be studied in a vacuum unless and until we understand the law, unless and until we understand how the communicative realms are being changed. So today we are all existing in an interdependent world. What is essential, and I sum up with that, that we cannot miss out the advantages offered by interdependence to all, not only to mitigate the crisis, but also to appreciate the idea of other alternatives offered. This requires that we must think about reforming the realm of global relations in an innovative fashion that balances human concerns with the other big concerns of development. With this, I'll rest my case here. And once again, gratitude to Dr. Sandeep Tripathi, our friends at GLA University, our friends at Amartank University, Madhya Pradesh, all our friends from academic fraternity from various parts of the globe. Thank you so much for listening to me, and thank you so much for having me as the co-chair. Dr. Tripathi, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Amna. Now, you really touched upon the very nuanced aspect of globalization, that let us try to balance globalization in the human-centric approach, and let us make it a globe in the truly sense as a global village. There's no boundaries at all in the terms of ecological issue, the terms of climate change, the terms of humanity. So on that parameter and that line, you really touched upon a very fundamental as well as very insightful line, that we need to reform the globalization in terms of humanitarian approach. So thank you so much, Dr. Amna. Thank you so much, Dr. Siavlin, for chair and the co-chair this first technical session. And thank you so much, paper presenters, Dr. Ramratan sir, Dr. Bundhaya sir, and Dr. Alok, Dr. Jen, Kaishyo Jen, Dr. Ellen, and those all the participants who are here, who are joining here. I'm hopeful, I'm very sure that you will be delighted, and you have been delighted, of course, from this insightful session. And so thank you so much. Now the second session will start, but at the same time, I do expect to be here to listen to other scholars the next second session, because we will give a boost to other participants and other guests. Or we have today joining. Now I'm welcome to Dr. Ben Duke. He's from United Kingdom. He's joining us. He's the paper presenters. And this the chair, the second chair, which is going to be held, it will be highly insightful. So this is my humble request to all the participants, including chair, co-chair, please to be here, so that it will create some sense of confidence and some sense of a communitarian feelings that all we are here to listen to each other. And thank you so much, Dr. Amna. Thank you so much, Dr. Savli. So.
Right, thank you ever so much, Dr. Sandeep. Yeah, my name is Ben Duke. Hopefully, I believe my colleague has got the PowerPoint presentation slides. Oh, in fact, can I just ask, can people hear me?
Yeah, welcome, Shaumya. Welcome, Dr. Shaumya.
If people can hear me, can you wave your hand if people can hear me?
Yeah.
Right, there we go, thank you. Right, I need to go to a different screen to give the presentation. Bear with me.
So, Dr. When we can wait for the timing. We can just wait for the timing. I'm just waiting for the chair and the co-chair, and then we will start. For the timing, just 1 minute, 2 minutes more.
That's fine. Thank you.
So let's just settle down this second session, because just we have completed the first session. So I hope that participants are joining, and those who are the paper presenters for this session. And I think so far, Chairperson Dr. Haitham Mojam didn't join so far. So I'm still waiting for him.
Dr. Sandeep, I am here.
Okay, but we have Professor Anil Sharma as his co-chair. So for that, she will be chairing the session. No issue. We will waiting to chair or Dr. Haitham Mojahid still. And we have paper presenter Dr. Van Duke and Dr. Soumya. Dr. Purva is here. Dr. Purva. Okay, she will join later. Dr. Subhadra Maharana. Or Dr. Thank you, Dr. Purva. Purva is here. Dr. Subhadra Maharana. I think she will join.
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. Thank you. And from Lebanon, we have Hawara Hizaji. So she will join, I think. She didn't join so far. So Professor Anupam Sharma, can we start?
Yes.
So for the second session, I would like to, just a minute, I would like to summarize the time slot for each speaker, as well as the theme. The theme of the second technical session is India and the Liberal International Order and Globalization, Key Challenges. This is the theme of the second technical session. So the first paper presenters, we have with us Dr. Ben Duke. He's a doctorate in social policy from Keele University, United Kingdom. So thank you so much for being here, Dr. Duke. And Dr. Soumya Tiwari, she's also here. She's both are the author and the co-author. And she's the fellow in Delhi West think tank. And she has done her PhD from Tata Institute of Social Science, Bombay. She's a great scholar. She's a learned and speaker. So we are very happy to see you here all. So can I start? So I'll welcome you. And now the floor is yours, Dr. Soumya. Please, can you start?
Right. Thank you so much. Thank you. Hi, Soumya.
Hi, Ben.
Yes,
Sandeep, sir, I just wanted to tell you, I cannot share my screen because it has been disabled for the participants.
Okay, I'm making you a host. I'm making you a host.
Okay. And Ben will do all the talking today, I think, and I'll just run the presentation slides.
Okay, I'm making a host, and you will be in a position to share it.
That's fine. Thank you so much. That sounds good. I just need to go and get my notes. Spare me, because I need to read off my notes. I want a chance to learn it. Spare me.
Yes, dear Duke, please start.
I'll set up the screen in the meantime, okay?
Okay.
Right, I'm just going to begin. Right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome, everyone. My name is Ben Duke. Please can I say thank you to the DLA University and the Indira Gandhi National Tribal University in India for organising this wonderful event. Slide 2, Soumya, Sandeep, slide 2. Thank you. As I say, my name is Ben Duke. I studied my PhD at Keele University in the United Kingdom. This is a presentation of a paper I co-wrote with Dr. Soumya Tiwari, the joint author of our manuscript, who I met through an online conference last year. Our joint paper is called Understanding the UK Post-Brexit Trade Renegotiations, Geopolitical Implications for Commonwealth members with focus on India and the United Kingdom. Slide 3, please. It will not be possible to cover our whole paper. My presentation will be in 6 parts, beginning with a short introduction discussing the main aspects of our conceptual theoretical review. The first section is called Principles for New UK Trade Relationships with Commonwealth countries post-Brexit. Section 1 discusses preferential access. This is a very complicated area with some egregious aspects of preferential access being played out between the UK and the EU as we speak. At the moment, now that the UK has left the EU, the UK has to comply with the trade arrangements with 27 different EU member states. This is causing significant supply chain problems in the trading of certain goods. This has operational and political implications for trade relations between the UK and other non-EU countries, of which India is one. The first section also discusses the economic principle. In this discussion, there is analysis of how financially beneficial a future trade deal between India and the United Kingdom post-Brexit will be. The second section is called New UK Trade Policies Post-Brexit, Social and Political Effects to Consider. In this section, we discuss concerns which could affect new trade policies post-Brexit in the states of people's employment rights, for example, access to healthcare, which is particularly acute during the current COVID-19 global pandemic. Housing and welfare payments are also facing more scrutiny. Some observers feel it is likely the UK will experience an economic downturn post-Brexit, putting pressure on public services. The third section is called Potential Geopolitical Issues post-Brexit, which could affect new trade policy between India and the UK. Geopolitically, the United Kingdom is at a critical juncture, having chosen to leave the EU, severing its former ties with the supranational organisation. India and the UK both recognise the joint benefits of effective bilateral trade ties. The UK has a schism about reverse colonialism. This tends to signify the UK's fear of their international standing slowly ebbing away, being taken over by formerly subjugated people, for example, India. Constant dithering from the UK with India constitutes the clearly intended aim of a key global partnership between the two countries. The UK's colonial past with India features strongly on several fronts. Slide 4, please. Yeah, slide 4. Thank you. The fourth section is called India and UK Economic Ties. You need to go back one slide if you can. To interpret the trade relations between the UK and India over the past decades, it is important to consider the current trade statistics, the key sectors for trading partnerships, and the changing nature of support that the UK government lends to India's development. The two countries also share a common historical relationship, that of a former colony, India, and an imperialist ruler, Britain, now the UK. From this perspective, the impact of colonisation on the Indian economy hangs heavy in India's psyche. The analytical approach of this paper does not disregard this issue, but discusses it with a post-colonial lens. India's post-colonial development trajectory
ये जो इसकी हड़प्पाएं हैं हम लोग इनको अपने चश्मे से ही देखते हैं हाँ एक्चुअल में क्या है कि हमें उसको जो है बहुत बारीकी से
Kindly mute yourself.
ये भी हो सकता है
Yes.
The analytical approach of this paper does not disregard the issue, but discusses it with a post-colonial lens. India's post-colonial development trajectory, relations with Britain after joining the Commonwealth, and in these post-Brexit times, will influence India and UK economic ties. There are main junctures that are set to influence geopolitical and trade relations between the two countries in the 2020s. The fifth sector is called Foreseeable Problems with Preferential Trade Access for one country compared with another. Case scenario, India and the UK post-Brexit. In précis, trade negotiations are difficult at the best of times. They can become derailed if factors not prevalent at the outset gain increasing significance over time as things change. For example, countries' least developed country status could be redesignated, for example, by a change of US presidency. The European Union, the World Trade Organization, the United Nations, or some other supranational agency, or the US, could reposition a country's development affecting preferential or differentiated trade access. Our presentation concludes with the sixth section. Our conceptual theoretical review has shone a critical lens on some causal factors which will have traction in the UK's post-Brexit trade negotiations. We found a multitude of compliance and trade regulation issues which will have to be addressed in future trade negotiations post-Brexit. We discovered a number of potential problems with suggested policy formulation regarding visa liberalisation. There were also foreseeable difficulties with differential access for some citizens compared to others. We found the UK is generally ashamed of its exploitative colonial past with India. Securing trade deals which are mutually beneficial to both parties will help assuage some of UK's feelings of guilt. The UK-Indian new trading relations will flourish post-Brexit, complete with the social justice of reverse colonisation continuing apace. Next slide, please. Thank you. The picture on the left depicts numerous representatives of Commonwealth countries with the UK's hoping to trade with in the post-Brexit era. The picture on the right of the PowerPoint slide is various members of the royal family attending some events. The Queen is the head of the Commonwealth. The picture is pre-Winfrey. UPO, the UK Trade Policy Observatory informs us Its purpose is to inform the development of policies governing trade between the UK and developing countries in a post-Brexit era. Currently, membership of the EU Customs Union binds the UK to the preferences given to the African and Pacific countries under the economic partnership agreements and ensure that its bilateral development policies would have to be consistent with general EU obligations. One interpretation of this 2016 Uppo quote is that it would be illegal under international trading law for the EU to grant the UK a better standard preference in EU markets than, for example, African, Caribbean and Pacific countries. The final point Uppo makes is even more telling. In effect, future trade deals the UK negotiates with any EU member state must not have a negative effect upon existing trade relations the EU has with other countries elsewhere, for example, India. This means that the UK is unlikely to get any better preferential access post-Brexit compared to what the UK already had before embarking on the Brexit process. The economic principle under which India and the UK could negotiate a trade deal relatively quickly appears to be vanishing. In early March 2021, the UK signalled its intention to unilaterally extend the grace period in the UK-EU withdrawal agreement to October 2021. This was due to the aforementioned mounting operational difficulties the UK was encountering in importing and exporting EU goods. This is in direct conflict of the withdrawal agreement the UK negotiated and signed up to as part of an independent sovereign nation state. The EU signalled then threatened to take legal action against the EU, also in early March 2021. The experts of COVID-19 vaccine dispute, currently ongoing, threatening triggering of the Article 60 of the withdrawal agreement was a politically uncomfortable near miss. This potential political ticking time bomb could yet explode on this or some other import or export issue. These sorts of substantial ongoing trade problems the UK has and will continue to face until probably the mid-2020s are geopolitically very damaging. They give potential non-EU trade partners, for example India, considerable pause of thought. Next slide, please. Thank you. The picture on the left of this slide is intended to depict mounting trade problems at the Mexican border indicated to have been caused by WTO rules and other supranational policies. The Mexican border there is the equivalent of the Indian border and other Commonwealth countries. It's the same issue. On the right is a picture of forgive ignorance, what appears to be an important political or business figure in India who may have some useful views on new UK trade policies post-UK Brexit. A drop in UK economic growth will act as a policy driver, resulting in relaxation of employment legislation that protects workers. The UK has made commitments to preferential trade access for least developed countries, enabled, for example, by GATT, the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade. On the one hand, these commitments could become conditional, especially in trade negotiations with Commonwealth countries, predominantly global South regions wanting to protect people's rights. Alternatively, the commitments could find EU global North countries who do not view preferential trade access as a priority. Once again, the UK was warned by international observers of something like the effects of Brexit on the UK economy post-Brexit. Observers include Nuffield Foundation and Case, who are both macro and micro economic welfare expert and analysts. The UK is supposed to be an advanced country on the international stage. There will be geopolitical reputational damage if the UK is unable to protect its citizens post-Brexit and also post-COVID-19, especially if they become exploited, just like the Indian people were during colonial rule. Next slide, please. The two pictures here show former United Kingdom Prime Minister Theresa May at a summit in India. What I feel is most striking about these pictures is the absence of Boris Johnson. He was Foreign Secretary at the time. I've been reliably informed that Boris Johnson is coming over to visit India at the end of next month, April 2021. The UK suffers from a huge overhang of reverse colonialism. The UK has developed a schism based on the fear of becoming a fading global light and also of its shameful colonialist history. A statement from Boris Johnson in 2017, our UK Foreign Secretary, highlights some of the thought process underpinning the UK's Brexit strategy. A strategic approach which is significantly dependent on maintaining good trade relations with foreign British colonies, in our case India. Here, trade deals will be atonement for colonialism. There are security and defence implications post-Brexit, which will affect forging new UK ties with Commonwealth countries, including India. There is some degree of paradox. Increased calls for social support as unemployment rises due to UK Brexit will increase political pressures to reduce defence spending. The effect of this paradox could be to incentivize the UK to streamline its defence expenditure. By pure coincidence, the UK Defence Secretary Ben Wallace is scheduled to announce what defence cuts will next be made in the UK in a command statement in the UK House of Commons later on today, Monday, 22nd of March 2021. Next slide, please. Thank you. The table from our paper shows how, according to the World Bank, India's GDP is estimated to be more than Australia, Canada, or the United Kingdom in 2019. This demonstrates that India is an economically important global trading partner. This has good geopolitical implications for India. India has become the second largest investor in the United Kingdom in 2020. The UK had the largest trade deficit with India among the Commonwealth nations in 2019. India's share of imports to the UK overall was 2.2%. Among the Commonwealth nations, India was the largest import partner for the United Kingdom in 2019, with almost a 25% share. UK exports to India increased in value by nearly a fifth between 2017 and 2018. Of these, nearly 70% were goods, with total exports from the UK to India totaling £5.5 billion UK pounds in 2018. In 2016, the UK was the third largest investor in India. About 8% of the total foreign direct investment inflows in the country came from the UK. Since then, several British companies became interested in forming business links and investing in India, especially after the launch of the Make in India campaign. By 2020, last year, India became the second largest investor in the United Kingdom. Next slide, please. Thank you. The picture on the left of this slide depicts the amount of agricultural produce, rice and spices and pulses the UK gets from India. What is not mentioned is how little the UK pays relative to the amount of benefit the UK population receives. The picture on the right of the PowerPoint depicts some of the protracted legal battles that have been over trade issues such as preferential access, differentiated access, and country of origin disputes between EU and non-EU member states, mainly as a result of product dumping. Trade dumping leads to price fixing, trade cartels, protectionism, and eventually policy failure, which occasionally can manifest itself as starvation in lower developed countries. The World Trade Organization mechanism and the policy harmonization around European Union rules of origin regulations provide another good early warning. India and the UK will have to be aware of these complexities in complying with such regulations in our liberal global rules-based democracy. India and the UK need to consider the effects of any future trade negotiations on existing free trade arrangements and the international relationships elsewhere post-Brexit. Both parties could be diminished geopolitically if a negotiated trade deal results in them unintentionally damaging other, often least developed Commonwealth countries. What this means in practice is externalities beyond the control of either India or the UK could be problematical to one or both parties. India and the UK need to ensure that they do not cause policy failure in other countries. A new trade agreement could tip the balance, resulting in certain suppliers now not being able to sell their agricultural or other goods. India has been involved in a legal case between a European company and the EU Customs Office regarding non-preferential origin assessment. The claimant alleged the defendant had allowed the dumping of unfairly subsidised goods in breach of EU rules of origin legislation. Next slide, please. Many thanks. So in concluding our presentation, we found that there are two main principles which may influence the development trajectory of new trade relationships between Commonwealth countries and the UK post-Brexit. The preferential access principle was manifest in many forms. We discovered a number of potential problems that suggested problem formulation regarding visa liberalisation. There were also foreseeable difficulties with differential access for some citizens compared to others. There was the economic principle. Our review harmonised with findings from other research studies which predict a significant economic downturn post-Brexit. The likely possibility of a shrinking UK economy has security and defence implications. Questions have been raised regarding the UK's ability and or desire to continue to contribute to NATO at pre-UK Brexit levels. In 2020, the UK government will be confirmed assurances given earlier in the affirmative. We found a number of compliance and trade regulation issues which would have to be addressed in future trade negotiations post-Brexit. What subsidies can be applied, where and when, was exceedingly complex. Often when we consider policy, protocol, or what was intended by various legislations, the appraisal landscape was continually shifting. If India's developed status was to be re-designated by a supranational entity, for example, the EU or the WTO, this could make negotiating trade deals in, for example, food, commodities, or IT even more complex than at present. The British Commonwealth will remain post-Brexit, but its form and importance, along with the geopolitical status of the UK, will diminish. The United Kingdom could be extinguished altogether if Scottish, Welsh, or Northern Ireland people were to choose independence. There is an increasing swathe of UK citizens living in the regions who are unhappy at being forced to leave the EU by London when they voted to remain in the European Union. This is the case in Scotland. In the event of successful regional votes for independence, the United Kingdom will begin to collapse. It would only be a matter of time before other British Commonwealth countries observe the UK post-Brexit and followed suit. Final slide, please. Many thanks, and that's the end of our presentation. I do hope you enjoyed that. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much, Dr. Duke and Dr. Soumya, for this insightful presentation. And Dr. Duke, it was so clear and lucid analysis of post-Brexit and the post-Brexit impact of UK, especially the relationship between UK and India. It was so insightful that you have touched upon the various, various facets like cultural, like social, like economic aspect, how UK will deal a post-Brexit era, especially from India. So it was really so insightful for us to understand the post-Brexit impact of on UK and India. So thank you so much. This paper was so insightful. Yeah, I would like to invite Professor Anupam Sharma to comment on your paper as a chair.
Yes, Dr. Bantuk and Dr. Soumya, we enjoyed a lot to your paper, and as we know that pictures say a lot in comparison to words. Yes, the pictures used in your PPT says a lot about the India and UK ties after Brexit. And through their presentation, Dr. Duke made that what are the principles for new UK trade relationship with Commonwealth countries, and how the trade has been increasing between UK and India after Brexit, and especially potential geopolitical issues post-Brexit, which are affecting the new trade policy between India and the UK. And India and the UK economic ties, especially the statistics supported through your presentation, yes, it shows that this trade has been increasing. So thank you very much. And the last PPT you mentioned in your conclusion that there are two main principles, preferential access and economic principle. These principles, yes, mainly playing role in the, we can say, the economic relations between UK and India after Brexit. Thank you, Dr. Duke, and thank you, Dr. Soumya Tiwari, for your presentation. And it was really a very interesting and very, we can say, wonderful presentation made by you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I'd just like to say how really good it's been working with Dr. Soumya Tiwari and getting a lot of the Indian perspective that I wasn't aware of, like, as well. Really enjoyable piece of work, enjoyed doing the research, enjoyed working together, and I've learned a lot as well.
Thank you so much for this your collaboration, and we are really hopeful that we will collaborate globally, by nationwide also. So the next speaker we have Dr. Purva. Dr. Purva is a doctorate from Jawaharlal Nehru University. She has a specialization in international law and politics. So I'm sure that her paper will be very delightful for all of us. So Dr. Purva, please take the floor and start your presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Sandeep, for inviting me and having me here. Thank you, and very good afternoon to all of you. We have discussed about UK and India. So now I will just take you people to the human right mechanism, that how international law human right mechanism works in India. And I'm basically trying to highlight that whatever international mechanism we have to protect the human rights and how it deals with the caste practices in India. So my paper basically deals with the mechanism that what bodies we have and how the issue of caste has been highlighted at the international level, and even we can say how it was ignored by the international mechanism in the beginning, and now they have started recognizing it. So I will just begin with that. We all know that international human rights law was praised since its inception, and the implementation mechanism has its own challenges, because at the national level we have an implementing mechanism which can be enforced in the society directly. But when we come to the international level, it is difficult to implement international laws because we don't have proper implementing mechanism for enforcement of international law. So when it comes to the human rights issue, then those human rights without the implementation mechanism remains just a promise to the society that yes, at the international level also you have some kind of human rights which are recognized by the uh, sorry, UN, United Nation, and those are just the recognition we can say without the mechanism. So my focus is on that only. So when the problem of caste discrimination was raised at the international level, we see that when UN was established, at that time there were efforts were made that the problem of caste should be introduced at the international level as well, and UN should address the problem, and there should be a international pressure on Indian government so that India could introduce various laws prohibiting caste discrimination. But as we know that our international laws are mainly like we can say have monopoly of some countries, or we can say that there are some basic uh, few forms of discriminations were recognized at the international level. That was because we can say at the that was because the third world approach or critical race theories, they were able to uh, raise their voice at the UN, and then UN recognized that yes, there is a problem of race, yes, there is a problem of color, and they were successful recognizing the problem of apartheid. But when it comes to the problem of caste discrimination, due to the unwillingness of Indian government, the problem was not raised at the United Nation, and it remains the national problem. But afterward, around 90s, the once again the problem was raised at the United Nation, and then human right mechanism was challenged that how the mechanism is going to deal with that. So we have this pattern like there is an international law, and to implement that international law, various treaty bodies are established. Every convention, every treaty has their own human right body, and that bodies treaty bodies, we can say there are two bodies, that is one is the chartered based bodies which have their source from the charter, and another is a treaty based bodies that whatever treaties are there, they have their own treaty body to monitor or to implement the human right convention. So those bodies time and again attempted to recognize caste discrimination. They have mentioned that in India we have a problem of poverty. In India we have a problem of education. We have a problem of child abuse. We have a problem of various. So they have recognized this problem, but the root cause of all this problem was the caste discrimination was not highlighted through this international treaty bodies. And afterward, when they have started recognizing that yes, caste is the root cause of all these problems, and it is practiced in India, and which is a huge violation of human rights, and they have time and again recommended Indian government that yes, you have a problem of discrimination and start prohibiting. You have laws for that. Then the implementation of those laws, it lacks somewhere. That issue was raised time and again at the international level, but Indian government was time and again saying that no, we have a national mechanism at the national level, so we don't need international law. Moreover, there was an argument that international law is more of Eurocentric nature. So the problem of Asian countries, it's our own problem. It's our own like a problem of our home. We will deal with it. So these kind of arguments came forward, and again the UN mechanism failed somewhere. That yes, this is the problem, and they didn't come forward with a definition of discrimination, which was further addressed by Human Rights Committee, and Human Rights Committee mentioned that yes, all the conventions, all the two covenants which are there in the human rights mechanism, they fail to identify that there are various forms of discrimination apart from race, color. So they have started including caste discrimination into the descent based discrimination, and they have introduced a new like definition of a discrimination. So in general, committee was arguing that at the international level, we don't have a specific definition of a discrimination, and due to that the treaty bodies somehow overlap with their mechanism, and due to that they fail to recognize the problem of caste discrimination. And again and again then UN started to include caste into other forms of discrimination, and at the end now we have included caste discrimination into the descent based discrimination. So I feel this is a challenge to the international law, that how the various forms of discrimination, or the problems of South Asian countries which are not recognized at the international level, and how the human rights mechanism is going to deal with it, because it fails somewhere. And the recommendations which they have given for the India as well as to the other countries who are practicing the caste discrimination, those recommendations and reports are mere recommendations. They recommended it, they asked the questions to the state governments, and somehow state governments denies that answering those questions and denies the practice, and it's going on and on. So this is the basic problem, I think, which the human rights mechanism at the international level we have. So my argument is like we can to in the human rights context, we can pressurize the countries through our like economic relations as well, that there is not a proper human right practices in your country, there is a huge violation of human rights, and if you continue these practices, then that will affect your economic relations or your other relations with other states. If that threat is there for the country, then it might change the perspective of Indian government or other state to look towards the problem of discrimination, because it was said that the problem of caste discrimination one day will become a problem of world, and that can be seen that now UK government is also facing the issues like caste discrimination is practiced there as well by the diaspora. Similarly, US is also now coming forward that yes, they also witnesses the practice of caste discrimination by South Asian diaspora. So my overall argument is that we should come forward with the recognition of a problem of discriminations, and the international mechanism, though it cannot provide a implementing mechanism, but it can pressurize the state government to look into the human rights issues, and to provide a just society. And that's it. Thank you so much.
So, hello, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Purva. You highlighted the caste discrimination, and if there is everything in mechanism at international level, we have international law for human rights. So why should not we have a mechanism to deal with caste discrimination? So wonderful. You presented very insightful perspective for this topic. Yes, ma'am. Professor Anupam Sharma, ma'am, please, any comments from this paper?
Yes, Dr. Purva, thank you very much for the presentation. And you mentioned in your presentation the status of protection of human rights and specifically the discrimination on the basis of caste. As you know that protection of human rights, not only protection but promotion also is necessity for the development and growth of individual personality, and ultimately we can say that it contribute in the development of the nation also. And the human rights of everyone without discriminating on caste and on other ground, it needs that the rights of an individual should be protected and promoted also. And as we know that in our constitution, it is clearly mentioned in the fundamental rights that there will be no discrimination on any ground, and in which caste is one of them. And when we talk about the mechanism, what we have, yes, we know we have the declaration and other guidelines at the international level. And if we talk in terms of India, and India, we also have our own mechanism. For example, at the state level, we have state human rights commission also. National level, we have National Human Rights Commission also. So these are the mechanisms where the people are being making, where we can say that they may be aware about their human rights, and if any violation is there, or if any violation of their human rights, then we have active judiciary also, which is supposed to protect the human rights of the people and to guide some time or to give the direction to the government regarding the protection of the human rights of the people. So from that point of view, your topic of your presentation is very nice and you presented very well. And thank you, Dr. Purva.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Purva. Now I would like to invite Dr. Subhadra Maharana.
Yes, sir.
So, Dr.
Thank you, sir.
Subhadra Maharana is a PhD scholar, Department of Political Science and Human Rights at Indira Gandhi National Tribal University. So, Subhadra, please, now the floor is yours.
Yes.
Please take it over. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon to all, respected dignitaries of the International Conference, respected chair and co-chair of the session. I, Subhadra Maharana, PhD scholar, presenting a paper on repercussion on economic globalization of gender disparity in neoliberal India. My paper is all about the impact. Anciently, women are confined to making home, nurturing children, taking care of whole family in the social field only. The society like India, where patriarchal nature is very dominant, has made the woman social centric. But with the advent of globalization, women make a next step towards the development in economic sector. Globalization is a multidimensional phenomena. It has been widely used in 1960s in the Western world, and it came to India in 1990. In this phenomena, the interconnection have been prevailed very strongly. According to Edward S. Herman, globalization is the expansion across international borders of management and process. At the same time, it is a condition of facilities and economic relation which is constantly expanding and it's simultaneously changing. Different groups of women have been mobilized by globalization. Economic globalization has also a great part of the society, which influence not only the economic sector, but also the other sector of the society, which include free market and neoliberal perspective in the society. Gender and economic globalization has strong connection, which created not only the social and political sector, but also economic field of India. There are the positive repercussion of economic globalization on the gender parity, and to improve the women conditions, the globalization and economic globalization has given many initiatives. And this globalization or new trend of market economy has brought more opportunities and chances to get the market or working field, so that the aim of globalization has been going on and successful. The gender parity has come up with a good perspective where women can make all the decisions with the men. They have raised their self confidence and have the ability to take decisions in the social field also. There are multiple solutions happened while anciently women even don't come out from house, but it is the women when the globalization has started. The women have given their best. It is in the women who also work in the agriculture. Nearly 78% of women engaged in agriculture. On a counter, men has 63%, where it shows the women has given their best in the economic sector in anciently and as well as in the neoliberal period. The advent of globalization, the market economy make the economy free with associated policies of privatization, stabilization, and liberalization, which lead to small industries and make people aware about them to get profit. And in this field, women take the advantage to show their ability as compared with the men. Wage, status, position are get established in different sections in the woman's life. Many NGOs are developed for creating awareness about empowerment and income. Social organization has also set up on the economic globalization. Accomplishment of Femina, a top, a top women's magazine, have been created in 1959, which shows the inspiration and shows the achievement of Indian women. Which shows the Indian women are globalized and way to a positive impact in the economic period or economic sector. The other factors also influence Indian women, which are media, many MNCs or multinational companies who have been given the wages and promotions for establishment of women. Many civil services also have been started for the upliftment of women. Although development have started by globalization, but there have been a miles to go to close the gender equality. Besides positive impact, negative repercussion also the advent in the with the advent of economic globalization. As per the World Development Indicators, women work two-thirds of the world's working hours, produce half of the world's food, but earn only 10% of the world's indicators and own less than 1% of the world's property. This is the scenario in the world sector where women are doing their best, but in having the in terms of result, they gain less than 10%. According to the Vandana Shiva, Indian economist and scholar, globalization, along with the support of organizations such as World Bank and the Property Fund, International Property Fund, have created slave wage. Besides, jobs availability is increasing. Due to globalization, the wages condition, discrimination with the gender, demeaning phenomena, insecurity has prevailed very vehemently. The domination of patriarchal nature and men's behavior over women in India has made them subordinate in every sphere. The low wages and lack of proper promotions given to them, mental stress. In order to get promotions and recruitment in both the private and public sector, the young, talented, smart women also get harassed, tortured in various spheres. Media, multinational companies, and other big organizations has made women to objectified and commercialized. Not only economic but social nature of Indian women also changed. The women get mobilized and influenced by various ways, but they discriminated in multiple sectors. In order to promote gender parity, many schemes have been establishing to enhance for women in the period of economic globalization in India. There are some of the schemes. The central sector scheme launched in 1986-87 seeks to upgrade skill of poor and assetless women and provide employment, marketing, strengthening. The scheme is giving services in the form of health checkups, legal and health literacy. Basic elementary education also provided in the scheme. Gender sensitization and mobile phenomena also established. Second one is Rajiv Gandhi scheme for empowerment of adolescent girls. The Sabla, a centrally sponsored scheme, was initiated by the government on 2010. Its aim is to give vocational training for girls above 16 years of age of their economic empowerment. Another one is Rashtriya Mahila Kosh, which was set up in 1993, formed under the Development of Women and Child Development Ministry. Another one, Gender Budgeting and Economic Empowerment Women, where it adopted gender budgeting as a tool to address inequalities faced by the women. This is my paper, and I'm concluding my paper with my concluding words. Economic globalization not only supports women, but also provide a chance to make decisions to their own economic or income stability, have provided to build up their choice against any personality and able to raise their voice against any discrimination. In this way, gender parity established where both the individual has shared the load of the necessity and understanding within the men and women make the fruitful of the economic opportunities, and it is a key factor of economic sphere for both the individual. Thank you.
So, thank you, Shubhadra, for a very clear and lucid analysis of economic dimension of globalization. And you really pointed out that economic dimension has created a lots of space for women in developing countries. It has created a lot of space for economic inclusion and for the mainstream for the women. So thank you so much for your insightful observations in your paper. It was so delight and honor to hear you. So ma'am, I invite you for your comments. Subhadra.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Subhadra Marana, for presenting your paper on repercussion on economic globalization of gender disparity in new liberal India. In her paper, Ms. Subhadra highlighted that how globalization has brought opportunities for women, especially in economic sector. As we know that in India, they are about 80% of women are working in agriculture, and this percentage is more in comparison to the male members of our society. And in other sectors, in we can say in the government sector, public sectors, and unorganized sector, globalization provided an we can say the very good opportunity to women working in this economic sector. And in her paper, she also mentioned that how women are working in different sectors, and they are coming out from their own zone, and the social organizations which are working in the Indian society, how they are motivating women to come forward from their own zone. But side by side in her paper, she has mentioned that what type of negative impact we can see in India, which came after globalization, that still women are struggling for the parity in wages. They, in unorganized sector, it is not we can say very common that they are getting same salary as their equal their male counterparts. So this is the problem, or we can say that it is the side effect in our country, and still they are working in different sectors where they are not we can say their salary is not well protected, and sometimes their rights are not protected, and insecurity also. Whenever they are working in the MNCs and they are working around the clock, then sometimes the problem of security is also a big issue in our in India, as she mentioned in her paper. So, so we can say that this is the scenario we have after globalization, where we have the positive aspect of it and we have negative too. And in her paper, she mentioned that how the government policies which passed by the government for the empower of women, they are working for the empower of women in India. She mentioned few name of the policies formulated by the government regarding the development of women, so they can contribute in the national development and specifically in the economic center. So thank you, Subhadra.
So I think now I'd like to invite Haura Hijazi. She is postgraduate from Beirut Arab University, but she is not here. I think she is not here. She didn't join so far. So one question from Jais to Dr. Duke. So Dr. Duke, you are here. Okay, one question. Dr. Soumya, are you here?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Okay.
So, just wanted to say I'm losing electricity again and again in my home. So, my internet connection might get a bit the same.
Okay,
but yeah, I'm here.
Yes. So one question from one participant, Jais. He is a doctoral fellow from Jawaharlal Nehru University. So his question to Dr. Duke: how would the UK diminish geostrategically in the post-Brexit world when it looks organized in dealing with the world through its recent integrated review titled Global Britain in a Competitive Age?
Is Ben here?
Yeah. Did you get the question?
No, can you please repeat the question?
Okay, of course.
Voice is not very clear.
Yes, Jay's question that how would the UK diminish geostrategically in the post-Brexit world when it looks organized in dealing with the world through its recent integrated review titled Global Britain in a Competitive Age?
I think Ben would be a better person to, answer that question because, he's covering the UK end of it. So,
Ben is not here. I think.
Oh, wait,
he
where
joined
did he?
Okay.
Yeah, because see what we have found in our paper, and I can only give you my insights, and that is why I'm saying that Ben might be a better person.
Yeah, maybe Soumya, you can give your insights.
Yes, I hope you can hear me properly. Dr. Sandeep, can you hear me properly? Yeah. So the way I would put it is that when we were compiling our data, and the aspects that I studied for the post-Brexit negotiations were how what are the perceptions of the lobbies that are interacting with the British, the British counterparts, and I hope I'm still there.
Dr. Duke joined here. Okay, thank you, Dr. Duke.
Is he there?
Yeah, Dr. Duke joined here. Please unmute yourself. Dr. Duke, please unmute yourself. Yeah.
Excuse me, sorry about that.
So one question to you, as a viewer, from Jayes, that 1 minute, just a bit.
I missed that. It just suddenly went quiet just then.
Yeah, the one question to you, Dr. Duke. How would the UK diminish geostrategically in the post-Brexit world when it looks organized in dealing with the world through its recent integrated review titled Global Britain in a Competitive Age?
Right. I think the UK post-Brexit, it intends probably the theme of our paper is the trade relationships. But I think looking further afield, we've still got the globalization issue, and where the UK will fit within globalization and what it's trying to do. And I think the future direction for the UK outside of the EU is to be, it's more or less going to go to quite an insular state, really. On the one sense, it's going to want to do free trade arrangements with lots of different countries, which it's already finding is a lot more difficult to do than to say. On the other hand, it's happy to take a sort of quasi-isolationist approach of we're British, you join us on our terms, or we don't join in. So in that sense, it's still colonialist. It's still got that attitude regarding it, even though it's no longer an empire. It's not a form of power like anymore. It's the UK still tend to think that it's quite superior, but it's actually finding that it's still got to do trade with other people as well. It's actually got to sell its goods to other markets, which is difficult. It also needs to buy goods from other people to actually manufacture its own goods as well. And the UK long term needs to be careful, because it can only half feed itself in the UK. It gets its rice and wheat from other countries, and yet it's there sort of like trying to think that it's superior when it's not. And I think if you actually look at globalization, what that's going to do in the long term is, especially when you've got the Internet of Things to consider as well, a lot of work is going to become de-skilled, and we've seen this in the COVID-19 global pandemic. Work's going to change rapidly. The labour-intensive work will reduce even further. Retailing will reduce even further. Now, you could do more things like online, and that's been brought forward 5 or 10 years. And it's going to have a lot of people out of work, and that's going to lead to social tension and domestic problems indoor. We've seen a flare up in Bristol this weekend. That's small. We had the problems in 2011 of a real social disorder, and I feel a return to that. If the UK takes its isolation, feed, house, do the healthcare, and give the people work and a meaningful purpose to life, and also feel valued. And another thing that I think the UK does get wrong, domestically and internationally, is that it doesn't value its people. It thinks it's superior, wants to go forward. It tries to convert people by the back door to the UK way of doing things, even though it's fundamentally wrong. And that probably causes international and national tension internally. And that's what I think is the effect of globalization, or where the UK will go. So it's going to end up being in quite a lonely place, and unable to feed and house and clothe its people. And it will actually get to that stage fairly soon. I think the nature of the way things are done, certainly the UK and maybe wider field, changes from where it is at the moment. So sorry, it's such a depressing note, but that's how I feel about the effect of globalization, and where I think the UK will be in, say, the next 10 or 20 years. So it's fairly soon that it's going to start collapsing. No.
Thank you, Dr. Duke. Your response to Jay's. So now I think Hawara Hijazi is not here. So I'm just going to hand over this floor to Professor Anupam Sharma for concluding remarks. And then we will try to sum up this conference, this second technical session of today's conference. So, Professor Anupam Sharma, please summarize this technical session as a chair. And one important information to you all before handing over to Professor Sharma. So please, tomorrow, it is just 2 days international conference. So tomorrow on 23rd March, we will have a session. We will start 12:30 IST Indian time. So I'll request you all participants, please join tomorrow as well. And very delightful session will be held tomorrow. So this is my humble request to you all here, those today joined, and I hope that we will enjoy it tomorrow also. So this is my request as well as information to you. Thank you. Professor Sarma, please.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Sandeep. And yes. In this technical session, we had two themes. One, which I remember, India and the international order. Yes, India and the liberal international order and globalization key challenges. Yes, in this technical session, 3 papers were presented by the presenters, and yes, I can say that the theme of this technical session were covered in these 3 papers. The first paper presented by Ben Duke, where he presented that how India and US UK relations are going on after Brexit, and in the next paper the paper presenter mentioned that how the status of human rights in India. Specifically, she mentioned in her paper that how the discrimination is done regarding the protection of human rights in India. And in the third paper, Ms. Subhadra Maharana, she mentioned that after globalization, how we can see its impact in India, specifically in women conditions, how they are coming in the social economic sector, and specifically, and how it's making its negative impact regarding the status of women in the context of India. Yes, these 3 papers were presented by the paper presenters. First, I would like to thank all the paper presenters who are here, and the first is Soumya Tiwari also, because the first paper was jointly prepared by Dr. Ben Duke and Dr. Soumya Tiwari, and it was well presented by Ben Duke. So I thank you all the 4 paper presenters. And I have my observation regarding these themes which we have in this technical session, because since morning we are discussing that what is the liberal international order after Second World War we have. Actually, this liberal international order, which it took shape after the Second World War specifically, because before that, as Professor Rajan mentioned, that there was 3 phases of international order. The first was pre-First War, and the second was after First World War, and we can say the pre-Second World War, and the last one, but the present one, we can also say it is the present one. We have the liberal international world order. We have it. Yes, so this was the international order basically, which was led by US and European countries, and after the Second World War, globally we can say the measures were taken by the countries, and you can say for another war, specifically UNO came into existence, and other regional organizations also we can see at the international scenario that different regional organizations were established, were formed for the political cooperation, we can say, or economic cooperations globally. So this new liberal international order specifically, which was underwritten by US and its partner, which promoted economic openness and democratic international order for cooperation, and it established various international organizations. These international organizations, such as I earlier mentioned, that UNO, WTO, and NATO, G20, and these organizations basically were representing the countries globally. But we can say that a few countries were very much dominant in these international organizations, or we can say they played a very important role, dominant role in comparison to the other countries. And after that, we can say see the scenario at regional level. What happens that so many regional organizations were formed by the regional power to have their to have more cooperation at the regional level, and for economic development, for political participation. So therefore we can say that this is the scenario which we have after Second World War, and specifically in we say that a new international world order. And a sea change we can see after collapse of USSR, because after Second World War we had a bipolar world which was led by USA and USSR. These were the two dominating power at the international level, and the world one group which was led by US, it was the group of democratic countries, and the second group which was led by the former USSR, it was led by USSR, where communist system was there. So at that time it was a bipolar world, but after collapsing of USSR, we see a change at the international scenario. The world which was earlier bipolar, it converted into a unipolar world, and this unipolar world was led by USA. And we can say after 2 decades, up to the 2010, it's not a clear-cut demarcation, but we can say it as about 2 decades around, where the US led the global world we can see the globally. And this globally we can say that the countries were not so other countries were not so dominant, or they were not have the power as such. Internationally we can say that the regional organizations were there, the countries were coming, or economic development we can say the developing countries, but they were not in position to have a stand at the international scenario. That was the time. But what happened after globalization? Globalization, we can say that the scenario at the international level has been changing till now. It made an impact and the international relations or international world order what we have. That's why now the question or the debate is going on that what type of emerging world order we have. Now we can see the debates and discussion not only in academia but in other platform also, at the political platform also. Whenever the scholars talk about the what type of world is emerging now, it means as in the morning session our key speaker said that now the new international world order is it in crisis. If it is in crisis, it means we can say that what the world order was established or developed after the Second World War, it is in the changing, or we can say shifting towards a different side here, because the domination where one side the domination of US has declined or has been declining we can say, and other powers especially in economic field, China, Brazil, India, they are coming. And in this technical session we have one theme, India and international order. So India is also coming as a you can say the international market, and coming being a biggest democratic country. India achieved a lot in the very short span of its journey. It is all about 7 decades after the independence we can say. But not only in the political terms in the sense that democratically India became very strong, and we have the very participative democracy, and not only we have the democratic institutions, but the country has developed democratic processes also. So now this is the one side we can say that what we have inside the country, that democratic institutions, they are growing, they are we can say becoming more strong democratically, and the process which started as a started before 7 decades, now we can say say it has developed a lot. So from that point of view, India with its democratic political system specifically, as we know that our neighbor country China, yeah, economically they did a lot, and we can say, and economically they are very sound, and they have very playing very important role at the international scenario. But the plus point here is that India, whatever India achieved in this 7 decade, it achieved with its democratic process, which is very much important, because what we see in the last we can say about 70 years, or after Second World War, we can say that the most of the countries are adopting or they are following the democratic processes, and whenever the countries are evaluating politically, their democratic processes also evaluated on this ground. So that point of view, India globally is very much accepted from that point of view. Politically, here the democratic system developed, democratic institutions and processes. So that is the scenario we have in our country, and the approaches which developed after the Second World War, now we can say they are vanishing, and the new approaches are coming out. In the first, we can say in the key speaker in our inaugural session mentioned very clearly that what's going on right now. Then we have a different type approach. Yeah, Dr. Sandeep, can I take 5 minutes?
Okay.
Do we have time?
Yeah.
I'm just concluding within 2 minutes. So the materialistic approach we started after the Second World War, and specifically after globalization, now it has been shifting towards the human-based driven approach. And here I would like to quote the scenario we have during the pandemic, where the line of developed and developing or underdeveloping, we can say, have withered away. Now there is no line where these are the developed countries, these are the developing countries. The main issue is that how can we protect, how can we save the human life for their wealth? And they were at the top, they were the superpower, they led the world about 6 to 7 decades. Now they are feeling they seem helpless during this pandemic. So in last 1 year, not in last 1 year, we can see this change in last decade also. Now the people have more focus on human-based approach, how the quality of human life can be improved. It is not a matter of that how much wealth we have, how much country is rich in terms of wealth, but the thing is that how people are well protected, their rights are well promoted, how the states work for the protection or promotion for the betterment of the people. So this is the scenario which is going on a change, we can say, and we can see more cooperation. And through this more cooperation with different type of cooperation, collaboration are coming out. As I mentioned that we can see the regional organizations in different region. And when we talk about in Asian countries, that we can see the different regional organizations, they are coming, and India is leading country among these we can say groups or the organizations. China is one of them, which is working in which is playing very prominent role in Asian region. But India is also very important, and from the economic point of view, the power of India, the economic power, the political power, and the market power, because market power is very much important. Now India in this position where it can't be neglected by the superpowers. Those are called the superpowers, or earlier the international order, which was shaped by US and other political powers. Now they can say that now they can realize that the power of India can't be neglected. Whenever, not only in present context with liberal order we have right now, or we had in last 6 to 7 decades, where the India emerged as a powerful country. in economic terms. And I think, as Dr. Amna also said, that the present century will be the century of Asian countries. So we hope that the countries which are in the region of Asia and specifically India, they will come with their full strength and they will play their role in the regional organizations they are playing. But at the international organization, they will play their role. They will be the part, whatever decision will be taken for the future. So from that point of view, I would like to say that the India is emerging as a power which has its role not only in the present world order, but whatever world order we will have in future. India will play very important role in international world order and the international organization. It has already started its role through WHO. We know that how India is coming as a powerful country in terms of providing medicine and making vaccine to meet out the challenges of coronavirus. So from that point of view, I feel that the coming years or the coming decades, that India will be in a better position and it will play a very important role in the international world order and the international organizations also. Thank you, Dr. Sandeep Tripathi.
Thank you, Professor Anupam Sharma, for the concluding positive, optimistic note, India's position in the global world order. And thank you once again, you all. I won't take much more time now. So thank you one by one. Thank you, Purva. Thank you, Shaumya. Thank you, Dr. Duke. Thank you, Janardhan. Thank you, Dr. Ramratan. And those who are participants, Puneet, Jayesh, thank you, Dr. Chetna Singh, Gopal Singh, जिनको मैं देख पा रहा हूँ. So thank you, Dr. Rion Fundal Marve. Today he will be chair the first session tomorrow. Tomorrow the first session. So guys, this is my humble request to you that please join us tomorrow. Maybe the two sessions. The first session will start 12:30. Mr. Rion Fundal Marve will be chair. And Dr. Venkat Raman, he is the IAM professor, Indian Institute of Management in Indore, will be the co-chair. So I hope that I'll see you tomorrow as well. And I hope that you have enjoyed today entire session, the first session, the second session. And those who are stayed with us throughout the day, I'm really, really thankful to you. I'm really grateful to all of you. So thank you so much for being here. Since we are virtual, so we don't have a kind of tea and coffee. So bye-bye, you all. Thank you so much. Bye.